Hello viewers, this is Revealing Light Tarot. Today, because I've had a number of requests, I'll be reading on the Senate race in Florida. I've already done the governor race, but I'll look at the Senate race between Bill Nelson and Rick Scott. I've done a little bit of research, but I won't we'll rely on intuition and the cards, but the thing that struck me was the environmental issues out there. I mean, there's a raft of issues in this going into the midterms in Florida in the Senate for the Senate race. But we have an incumbent in Bill Nelson and a long-serving incumbent as well. So that's going to go in his favour. And then Rick Scott, with his track record as a governor, will likely or not go in his favour. Perhaps not in some cases. But the big, issue here, I think, for Scott is his affiliation with Trump. So in recent times, he has been distancing himself from Trump, it's almost as though that Trump is sort of a liability to his campaign. So there's some really strong strong opportunities in Bill Nelson's favour. He's a known brand, and then we've got the anti-Trump faction or anti-Trump sentiment that is rising as well there. So it will be very interesting to see how this race will pan out. I will just have a see if what I can see. Yeah, I think this Scott, and I mean, he's obviously quite a wealthy man. Scott's alignment, he was one of Trump's greatest fans in the beginning. And the more that Trump comes out in the midterms, I don't know why they're giving him more press time, because I don't think he's doing too many favours. There's 50% approve. Polls show that 50% approve of Trump, and I think it's 52% approve of Trump and 48 disapprove. However, then that's just Trump. I mean, Trump's not running for the Senate in Florida. Rick Scott and Nelson are. So it kind of tells me that disapproval rating will have an impact, or that disapproval of Trump will have an impact. So let's just see. Bill Nelson, he looks quite comfortable. Rick Scott, associated with this money, there's not enough. They're not seeing the Florida. If voter turnout is good in Florida, there's not enough people seeing the benefits that Rick Scott could deliver over the benefits that Nelson might deliver. So we'll look at the cards. So who is likely to be successful in the Florida Senate race? Rick Scott or Bill Nelson? Rick Scott, Bill Nelson. Who is likely Florida? Are the wins in Nelson's favour or Scott's? Who is likely to win? Nelson or Scott? I think Nelson holds a slim lead at the moment. Okay, people are weighing up their options at the moment and considering their choices. This is very much the card of considering the best choice for them. It's interesting. I got this card with the wave and the seas behind it. There could be I talked about an environmental issue with the red toxic algae bloom at the moment, and perhaps not enough being done about that at the governor state level. There's also the hurricanes here and the Trump response to those as well that will bear that are very timely, that will have a bearing on this race. The challenge is loss for someone, obviously, I've just been talking about what those issues might be that will go against Scott. It could very well be that there could be loss for Scott, but we'll leave the we'll leave the rest of the cards to tell their own story. The Eight of Cups is of course retreat and moving on. The question, of course, is who are they moving on from? Is it from Trump and the Republicans, or is it from Bill Nelson, the incumbent? So the focus of this situation again is this Empress card, and if people have been following my readings, they always come up in response to Democrats. The Empress, of course, is abundance, and it's the card. The Empress is the mother, represents the mother, the feminine energy, and the Emperor represents the energy of the male and the father figure, which is around those traditional, strategic kind of things. So the Empress, we talked about the environment, the abundance, and in relation to, people are quite concerned about these environmental issues and about what the land and climate change, these are all going to have an impact on their vote. So this is telling me, this is the focus of the situation, is telling me that these issues around care, climate change, caring for the land, this whole money versus, moneyed interest taking instead of, giving and being, stewards, if you like, or being responsible, rather than just take for financial gain. I mean, people are looking for stewardship as well as anything else, and they're looking for stewardship of the land and of the climate, and these issues, as I said, are having a bearing in this race. And the Wheel of Fortune is turning, and it's, to me, that is saying that it is turning away from what Trump has to offer. So I felt very strongly that Rick Scott would be very tied up with all the issues that have dogged Trump in the last 2 years. His response to the high school shooting there, his response on climate change, his mining of pristine ecological areas, his treatment of black African American. It's his treatment of other minorities. His treatment of Puerto Ricans, when he went there after the hurricane. All of these things are catching up with Rick Scott. And I can understand why he would be wanting to distance himself from Trump. Now, the card of the Lovers is about relationships, and so who is forming relationships with their electorate at the Senate level? Is it Bill Nelson or is it Rick Scott? Well, Rick Scott is coming in and new to this. The relationships are there. This is the strength of the situation. So the person who has those established relationships with the majority of people is it will bring that strength to the Senate race. And look, it's a win, and I think it's a win for Republicans. And I note all of the inclusiveness that this card brings. So I'm thinking that it's looking more in favour of Nelson than it is of Scott. And the reason that I'm thinking about that, I very much think that people are really at the moment still making up their minds. So I guess we shouldn't get too far ahead of ourselves at this point. When you've got, polls reflecting neck and neck and very, very close polls, that's sort of telling me that people are still undecided. So as it stands today, I would say that people are, it's all, very close. People are still deciding. But there is loss for someone, and because I drew the Empress card, which I so associate with the Democrats, it looks as though the Wheel of Fortune might be turning for the Republicans. I might just see if I can look the Ten of Cups. I might just get a clarity on the Empress. we know that it's happy endings. We know that it's loss for someone and happy endings for someone else. But really, who? And who is the wheel of fortune turning for? Is it turning for the Democrats or the Republicans? So let's just see. We want some clarity on the Empress card. Is Bill Nelson or Rick Scott likely to win at this stage, or is it too early to tell? Can we actually say that? Is the incumbent senator likely to hold his seat in the Senate? Yeah, I don't see that Bill Nelson's going anywhere. And the Queen of Cups is this nurturing person, this supportive person, this person who's there when needed. Bill Nelson's records, I think, reasonable, and he's seen as a stable choice. He's been there since I think 2001, and this is the card of a nurturing person, someone that is supportive and help is there when you need it. So really, as I said, these issues around climate change and environment are impacting, and I think that the Republicans' record, even in the short time that Trump is there, has been there on the environment and other matters, including his response to the hurricanes. That's actually going to go against Rick Scott. So that's where we are at the moment. I'm tending toward Bill Nelson, but as I said, there is this card in the present where people are still weighing things up. So bear that in mind, that the elections aren't until November the 6th, but you've seen the cards. It's definitely a happy ending and a happy ending. It's definitely a positive outcome. And I'm thinking based on these two cards, it's probably, and the questions that I asked, it's probably a happy, a positive outcome for Bill Nelson. So that's our reading on the Florida Senate race. They're all very, very close. That's coming out in the cards. At this point in time, they're very, very close. But it seems to me that Bill Nelson, the incumbent senator, might just inch ahead there, might just have the edge because of the anti-Trump sentiment or response that's going to flow through the polls in November at the midterms. Okay, thank you very much.